Hello viewers, this is Ronald taking you through this tutorial for O-level mathematics, and this video I'm going to talk about the topic for histogram of grouped data. This topic is under statistics and is suitable for students in both senior 3 and senior 4. Now, today we are going to talk about the solutions, the assignment I left in the previous video. So these are the very questions I left in the previous video. Question 1 was from UNEB 2012, paper 1, question 13, and question 2 was from UNEB 2008, paper 2, question 12. So I believe you already tried them out and ready to mark yourself and check your progress. So we shall start with question 1. Question 1 says that the table below shows the marks scored by 50 students in a mathematics test. So these are the marks and these are the number of students for each class. Part A, Roman 1 says represent the information on a histogram, and part B says use your histogram to estimate the modal mark. Then part B says use the table to estimate the mean mark using a working mean of 44.5. So note this word, working mean of 44.5. So before we draw the histogram, or before you start answering the questions, the first thing which we are going to do is to tabulate our information given. So the first column will be for class, and for the class will be these values. So the marks here are the very values we shall put under the column for class. So let's do that. Okay, so that is the class. Now next will be F. F denotes for frequency, and frequency will be these very values for the number of students. So let's first put them there. Now this 50 is the total of all these ones. So when you sum up all these values, you'll be able to get this value, which is 50. Now this is the information given. Now because they wanted mean, so we have to first get the values of x, where x is the mid mark or class mark. Now this class mark, like we said in the previous video, is good by getting the average of the lower limit and the upper limit. So you'll say this plus this to come up with what will be here. So, and the same will apply for all the other classes. So when we do that, we shall come up with these values. So I think you realize that when I add 22 plus 29, I'll come up and divide by 2, I'll come up with 24.5. When I add 30 plus 39, divide by 2, I'll come up with 34.5, and so on. So that's how these values can be generated. Now because in the question they gave us the working mean of 44.5, we shall have to get a column for D, where D means the deviation, and it's equal to values of x. You subtract the working mean from the values of x. So when I say 24.5 minus 44.5, I'll be able to come up with this value. So, and the same applies for all these values. So when you do that, that's what you are going to come up with. So I think realize that when I say 24.5 minus 44.5, which is the working mean, I'll come up with negative 20. When I say 34.5 minus 44.5, I'll come up with negative 10. 44.5 minus 44.5, I'll come up with 0, and so on until I get all those values. So now that I've got the value of f of D and I know the values of f, I can now generate the column of FD, whereby I'll have to multiply F with D. So when I multiply all these values, when I do that for all those values, I'll come up with this column. So I think realize that when I multiply 3 by negative 20, I'll come up with negative 60, which is here. Then 7 by negative 10, I'll come up with negative 70. 16 by 0, I'll come up with 0. 14 by 10, I'll come up with 140. 6 by 20, I'll come up with 120. 3 by 30, I'll come up with 90. And 1 by 40, I'll come up with 40. Now this 260 is good by adding up all these values. So when I add all these values, I'll come up with 6, and that's what I put here under the row for total. Okay, so next is to get the class boundaries. Now to get the class boundaries, like we said, you have to look at these two values, one for the upper limit and the one for the immediate lower limit. Now when I say this 30 minus 20, I'll come up with 1. So 1 divided by 2, I'll come up with a half, which is 0.5. So what does that mean? It means that to get the values of the lower class boundaries, I'll keep on subtracting 0.5 from these lower class limits, and similarly to get the values of the upper class boundaries, I'll keep on adding 0.5 to the upper class limits. So when we do that, this is what we shall get. So I think you realize that now for 20 minus 0.5, I'll come up with 19.5, and 29 plus 0.5, I'll come up with 29.5. 30 minus 0.5, I'll come up with 29.5. 39 plus 0.5, I'll come up with 39.5. So this is done for all those values of the class limits, and that is how you can get these values of the class boundaries. So from this table, these are the values, these are the marks that can be got from this slide. So B1 would be for generating the values of X, and another B1 for generating the values of D, another M1 now for generating the values of FD, and B1 for the total, summing them up, and another B1 for the class boundaries. Okay, so now that we have generated the table, we can now answer the questions that follow. Now, part A, Roman 1 says, represent the information on our histogram. So first of all, we need a graph paper, which is that, and next we have to draw the axes and label them. So remember, histogram is the graph of frequency against class boundaries. So for the horizontal, we shall put their class boundaries, and for the vertical, we shall put there the frequencies. Okay, so that is the axes which are well labeled. They have to be labeled. The horizontal will be for class boundaries, and vertical will be for the frequencies. Now next is to plot our histogram. So you have to come here and remember that we are plotting frequency against class boundaries. So for this from 19.5 to 29.5, the corresponding frequency is 3, so we shall come here and draw it. So we shall look for 3 on the vertical scale and come up with that bar. Then we shall go to the next class. The next class corresponds to 7, and next corresponds to 16. So we shall come and draw those classes of 17 and 16. So we shall go with the one for 7 and another one for 16, which is that. Okay. So after 16, we shall go to 14, then 6. So let's draw 14 followed by 6. That is 14, then 6 is that. So next will be now 3, and lastly 1. So let's come and draw that. So that is 3, then we come to 1 and also draw that. So basically that is what they wanted in a Roman 1 to represent the given information on a histogram. So next we shall go to Roman 2, where they told us that use your histogram to estimate the modal mark. So for you to estimate the modal mark, you have to join from here. You have to draw a line from this highest to the next class, and also from here to the class before it, which is that. Then after that, we shall look at this point of intersection. So this, where the two lines intersect, shall drop a perpendicular to meet the horizontal axis. So let's do that. Now from there we shall read that value, and that will be our modal marks. So before I go to the next slide, let's first see how marks can be awarded in this step. So B1 for drawing all the axes, so the horizontal and vertical axes well labeled and with the correct scale, that is B1. Then B2 for drawing all these bars. Then M1 is for attempting to find the mode. So when these dotted lines are seen, that will be M1. So now the next is to read this value, and that will be our modal mark. So we shall come here and now conclude that from the histogram our modal mark will be 47.4. So now we shall go to part B. Part B says that use the table to estimate the mean mark using a working mean of 44.5. Remember, when they are giving you the working mean, the formula will be A plus summation of FD over summation of F. Now summation A is the working mean, which was given as 44.5. Summation of FD is 260, as we saw in this table. So when you look at this table, this is the summation of FD and this is summation of F. So you shall come and substitute them in our formula. So when you substitute, you shall come up with 260 over 15, and when I divide 260 by 50, I'll come up with 5.2, and when I add 44.5 to plus 5.2, I'll come up with 49.7, and that will be our mean mark. Okay, so now let's see how marks can be awarded. So this A1 will be for you to state the modal mark, and M1 is for you to substitute in the formula for mean, and A1 is for you to get the final answer, which is required. So basically that's how the 12 marks could come about. Now we shall go to question 2. So question 2 says the table below shows the weights in kilograms of 30 pupils. So these are the values, or the weights in kilograms for 30 pupils. Then part A says construct a frequency table with a class width of 5 starting from class of 30 to 34. Then part B says use the table in A2 Roman 1 estimate the mean weight of the pupils. Then Roman 2 draw a histogram and use it to estimate the modal weight of the pupils. So let's start with part A, where they want us to construct a frequency table. So we have to draw a table like that. Then we shall start with the classes. Now for the classes, we are told in the question that we start with a class of 30 to 34, and the class width has to be 5. So let's do that. Now that we have generated our column for class, we shall now go to the column of tallies. So tallies, we have to look for the number of people which lie within the given range. So from 30 to 31, I'll come and highlight them, and they will be realized that they are 2 only, so it will be 1, 2, meaning that for that class from 30 to 34, we shall give tallies corresponding to 2. The next is to get those which lie between from 35 to 39. So I'll come here and first remove these ones, then I highlight the ones from 30 to 39, and they will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'll come here and put tallies corresponding to 6. Next is for those from 40 to 44. I'll come here, first remove these ones, and then highlight the ones from 44 to 44, which will be 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'll come here and put tallies corresponding to 4. The next is from 45 to 49. So I'll come here and first remove these ones, and then I highlight the ones from 45 to 49, which will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I'll come here and put tallies corresponding to 7. Next it will be from 50 to 54. So I'll come here, first remove these ones and then highlight the ones from 50 to 54. So there will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'll come here and put tallies corresponding to 8. Then I'll go from 55 to 59. So I'll first remove these ones and then highlight the ones from 55 to 59. So there are only 2, so I'll come here and put tallies corresponding to 2. Next is from 60 to 64, so I'll come here and first remove these ones and then highlight the ones from 60 to 64, and it's only 1, so I'll put tally corresponding to 1. Okay, so now that I've finished that column for tallies, next will be the column for F, which denotes frequency. Now frequency, they will correspond to these tallies, so those will be the values. So for example, 2 corresponds to this tally of 2, I write here 2. This one is 6, I write here 6. This one is 4, I write here 4. This one is 7, I write here 7. This one is 8, I write here 8. This one is 2, I write there 2. And this one is 1, I write 1. So next is to add all those values to come up with 30. So now that I've generated the values of F, I'll go to the values of X. X is the mid-mark, so mid-mark is the average of the limits. So 30 plus 34 over 2, I'll come up with what is here and do the same for all those values. So that is the column for X. Next will be the column for Fx. So for Fx, I'll keep on multiplying the values of F with the values of X and come up with those values. Now the 1375 is good by adding all those values. So when I add all these values, I'll come up with 1375, which I'll put here under the row for total. The next is the class boundaries. For class boundaries, you have to look at these two limits, the upper class limit and the lower class limit of the class just after it. So when I say 35 minus 34, I'll come up with 1. Now 1 divided by 2, I'll come up with 0.5. Therefore, that means that to get the values for the lower class boundaries, I'll keep on subtracting 0.5 from the values of the lower class limits. Then to get the values for the upper class boundaries, I'll keep on adding 0.5 to the values of the upper class limits. So when I do that, this is what I'll come up with. Okay, so basically that is the table that will help us to answer the questions that follow. So we have consulted, and now what part B they said, use your table in A to estimate the mean weight of the pupils. So what we know, that mean is equal to summation of fx over summation of f. Now summation of fx is 1375 and summation of f is 30, so I'll come and substitute and then use the calculator to come up with 45.833. So before we go to the next slide, let's see how marks can be awarded in this slide. So B1 is for these class intervals, then another B1 is for the tallies, another M1 is for the values of fx, then B1 is for the summation of fx, then B1 for the class boundaries, then M1 is for substituting the formula for mean, and A1 is for the final output. So now we shall go to Roman 2. Roman 2 says that draw a histogram and use it to estimate the modal weight of the pupils. So the histogram, you have to have a graph paper. Then after that, having a graph paper, you have to draw axes and label them. So let's first draw the axes and also label them. Remember, histogram is a graph of frequency against class boundaries. So horizontal axis will be for the class boundaries and the vertical axis will be for the frequencies. Remember, the scale has to be uniform. So now that you have drawn that, we shall now come and start. So the corresponding frequencies will be got from the table, so we shall come here and look for the frequencies. For the class boundaries of 29.5 to 34.5 correspond to frequency of 2, and the next will be, and from 34.5 to 39.5 correspond to a frequency of 6. So we shall start with 2, then followed by 6. So look for 2 and draw the horizontal bar to represent that class. Then the next was 6, so we shall come up at 6 and draw that bar. Now from 6 we go to 4, followed by 7, so we shall come here and draw 4, then followed by 7. Now from 7 we shall go to 8, followed by 2, and lastly 1. So we shall come and draw 8. Then 8 is followed by 2, and lastly 1. So that is our histogram, and now we have to use it to estimate the mode. So to estimate, I have to draw a line of the highest model. This is our model class, so from this corner to this corner I'll draw a line, then from also from this corner to this corner I draw another line. Now the point of intersection, we shall drop a perpendicular to meet the horizontal axis. Then when you read off that value, that will be your mode. So shall come and say that from the histogram, model mark will be given by 50.25. So that's what they wanted, and now let's see how marks can be awarded. So B1 for the axis, B2 for both, for the bar, all the bars correctly drawn using a ruler, and M1 is for attempting to find the mode, and A1 is for the mode. So that brings us to the end of this video. Thank you for watching, and be reminded that the next video will be on OGIE for grouped data. So if you have not yet subscribed, please click on the subscribe button below this video so that you can be updated when the next video on OGIE for group data has been uploaded. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and also if you know of any student who's not yet on this platform, please share the link of this video with them via social media platforms like Facebook and WhatsApp so that we can all benefit as a family.